Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and I'm back again playing Derail Valley. We're gonna let that go real quick. Alright, but I don't know what I want to do just yet. These are seeming really good. Or well, I haven't been up there for a very long time, so that could be interesting. Just haul an insane train of nitrogen to the food factory. A machine factory with acetylene seems a little bit more fun. Actually, diesel, gasoline, and acetylene would be really cool. It's also interesting that the acetylene ones are HAZMAT 3. That's actually kind of fitting considering how volatile acetylene is. But gasoline and diesel are only HAZMAT 1. Alright, so if I want all 4 of these jobs, that might not actually be a good idea. Alright, let's go... Alright, let's put in all 4 of them. Two sets of acetylene, gasoline, and diesel. Come on. Alright. E2, E10. Alright. No, not that. E7. Put that away. E5. Okay, so literally all 4 are in the E lot. So before we go over and get hooked up to our locomotives, let's go see how much these weigh. Because I can't do it based on the job, so I gotta do it based on the cars themselves. They're not mixed cargo, so that'll save us a little bit of trouble. Oxygen, that's not one of mine. Gasoline, 19,000 kilograms, 25,000 kilograms of cargo. Alright, so that's one of them. I need something with a red placard. Because acetylene is a fuel gas. Oh, they're not tankers, they're boxes. They're containers. Which is kind of cool because if these are full of liquid containers, they would legally be qualified as a tanker. Alright. So that's 11,000, 19,000. Okay. Well, that's gonna suck. Basically, the bottom line is the tankers have to be up front, and the acetylene has to be in the back. Where is the gasoline? This is just flammable, so this is probably the diesel. Alright, put those away. 74... 82. So yeah, 19,000, 26,000, 11,000, 19,000. Those are heavier. So those automatically win. Alright, so out of 26,000, what does the gasoline weigh? This is gasoline, right? Yeah. And FH74. Yep, these are mine. So 25,000 versus 26,000. Okay, so the diesel are going up front. And then the acetylene's going in the back. Alright. Let's grab this. Sweet. Videos do better when they have something for a thumbnail. Alright, let's go get the locomotives. As per custom, we're running 2 DE6s with MU cables. Alright, we need E7. Pro tip, don't walk backwards on track. That is literally how bad things happen. And matter of fact, that's just like a general rule for like everything in life. Pay attention to where you're going. The company that I worked for, we had a big sign at one of our terminals that basically said something to the effect of, look where you walk and walk where you look. Make yourself visible to prevent an accident. Now, in the game, we have the saving grace that we're the only ones here. But it's still best to be somewhat conscious of what's going on around you. It would be kind of cool if they, since everybody's like joking about the horror aspect of the simulator update, it would be kind of cool if there was nothing like attached to it. They just, in like the fog off in the distance, they had like a train whistle. It doesn't have to come from anything, just make it be emitted from something. Just to freak people out for a moment. Okay, release that. All right, we have electricity. So the last comment anybody made on it says expect end of June, so the very end of Q2. How much do you want to bet when I get to City Southwest it's going to be the other way around? I'd say place your bets now, but I haven't included that function in Streamlabs. And mostly because I haven't figured out how to set it up yet with all the like points and all that fun stuff. But the catch with that is to go through all of the trouble of setting up all of the points and all that stuff. It means you have to have people consistently watching and interacting, and that's just not always the case. Or at least not yet. We're heading that way because I'm starting to notice a lot more people are actually watching. More people are tuning into the streams, and if that wasn't enough to say that I was doing something right, more people are also watching the videos, both the VODs on Twitch and also when I export them to YouTube. So, clearly, in spite of the fact that the audience for Derail Valley is comparatively small, I still have an audience. And that's just really cool to me. And I actually just remembered that I was supposed to look up this morning what the requirements are to actually become an affiliate, so that hypothetically I know what it takes to actually do this for money. All right. It's always seemed like such a weird idea to think that you can potentially make money playing video games. You always think it would be something like working for a game developer, like testing things and actually being part of the development pipeline, but really the bulk of what people do is you have an audience on a streaming platform and people quite literally just watch you play games. It's kind of a cool idea. Now, I'm still kinda pessimistic, and I don't think I'm gonna reach that level, but the possibility is there. Now, the real question is, do I want to shove my caboose at the end of this? Probably not this time around, because I have this feeling that when I get up to the machine factory in the end, there's probably not going to be too much bringing me back down here towards the harbor. There might be a couple of things here and there, but I just don't want to deal with the hassle of having to either clear my caboose or shove it in a random hole. So this way, I'll just have these. Alright, so we need the small cut of cars with diesel, then the gasoline, then both cuts of acetylene. And it's going to be weird because when I get to City Southwest, I'm going to have to leave the acetylene cars outside of town and bring the back the tankers in. So it'll be a weird process where I gotta shift some stuff around. Basically everything about working with the railroad and train cars is it's kind of like a puzzle. You gotta figure out what you need to move where in order to do what you need to do. And this whole process is just about getting the weight properly distributed so we don't derail en route. The game's a little bit finicky at times about what makes you derail, so me personally, I just don't want to risk it and just set everything up under ideal conditions so that we don't derail. Especially since I'm going over an area that notoriously breaks my trains. Alright, well, we know we're going a little bit too fast, and we would damage those cars, so we want to slow up a little bit. It's kind of weird looking at the various aspects of the locomotive, because it's one of those things like, if you're like me and you barely know anything about locomotives, you would look at it and be like, alright, I can clearly tell that is a locomotive. This is part of a train. But then as you start to learn more stuff about them, you start to notice some things that are just like off. Like, you can see what they were going for, but then you also realize that some things aren't quite there. But at the same time, they never claimed this is a one-for-one perfect simulation of real equipment that you would find on the rails at some point. It's literally just a game where you can drive trains and blow stuff up. But if you're one of those people that's like really picky about like the minute details, you'll start to notice a couple of things that are just a little bit off, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. Why are we importing tractors? They're made at the machine factory. Why are they here? Or maybe we're exporting tractors? Let's see, what's this mark as? Oh, nope, this is a shunting job. Maybe we're exporting tractors? Who knows? Alright. 8-2. It's that one right there. Okay. Back to the front. I need my air hose. It's kind of weird because I never actually took the time to learn the controls for not playing in VR. So when you watch all of the videos and other streams of people playing it in like a 2D on their just normal monitor, it's weird because it's just like with the way the little like the cursor looks on the screen, it's a lot like when you play, say, Train Sim World, and how you interact with the controls in that, and it's just like, that's weird. Whereas I think I got into the flat game like once, and it was before they added the roll the mouse wheel to turn valves and handles. It was before they added that. You had to like click and drag on like everything, and I like absolutely hated it. I played it for like 5 minutes and I was just like, nope, not even gonna bother. And then I like literally never touched it again. I even installed it on my laptop that I take on the road with me, except I've never opened it. Now when I'm just playing on my regular computer, not in VR, I don't play Derail Valley, I play Train Sim World. And then I can bash my head against the wall when I accidentally blow through a signal and fail the scenario, because I got caught up telling a story or something and forgot that I was supposed to be driving a train. And it further adds insult to injury, because when I did this, I was literally in the final yard. I wonder if subconsciously that's why I haven't gotten back into Train Sim World yet, because I have to deal with the shame of completing that mission that I failed horribly. Alright, now this one should be gasoline, and it's 74. 74. Okay, so this one's next. Okay, those are all lined up. And then we need the spicy gas tanks. Where is the other cut? Oh, it is not completely on the end, but pretty close. It's the second to last. Matter of fact, let's run over and make sure that is in fact what this cut of cars is. Because this is acetylene, and that's 25. Yep, 25. Alright, so after we clear this switch, we realign to go there, because that'll be the third one. Alright, so basically we gotta bounce back and forth around the E-track to get our cars loaded in a way that's not idiotic. Alright. Great. Then we can leave that one alone, because the lead going this way is up here. So we don't even have to touch that one. And then we can make it really weird. Instead of going over there to get the third cut, we can get the shorter one first, because it doesn't particularly matter. Alright. And just like throw the whole system out the window. Alright. Now we gotta be careful around these switches, because I think it's this specific switch that causes me problems. Or it's one of them. Really, I've got problems with a lot of the switches, but help is coming. Can't say enough how excited I am about the simulator update. Pretty much like everything about that, you're just like, yes, sign me up. If only I was fluent in another language and I could help translate. But no, my German's not nearly good enough to call myself a translator. I'm barely conversational, especially since I haven't used it for a long time. And the idea of helping to translate is you have to be either a native speaker or fluent enough that you can almost pass as one. Otherwise, you won't be doing very effective translation. And since the posts that you see online, I don't know what country Alt Future is based in, but all of the posts I've ever seen have been in English, so it seems pretty safe to say they don't need an English translator. I think somebody posted like a picture on one of the update posts specifically about the level crossings, and they were just like, clearly they drew inspiration from Serbia, and here's why. Well, I've never been to Serbia, but the picture was pretty compelling in my opinion. I'm sure it's a really nice place. There are a lot of places over here in the West that people would not generally think of as being like a tourist destination, but then you can go there and find out, no, they're actually awesome. You should check them out. Like last year, I did a trip where I went on a vacation to visit Romania. Romania is a very nice place. I really liked it there. Actually on the list of places I want to go back to. Although I stupidly forgot to bring my dictionary and translator books with me. So I was walking around in a place where I have even less of a command of the language than any other language I've ever attempted in my life. And trying to order food in like restaurants and cafes, trying to use like Wi-Fi and Google Translate, like, yeah, this is gonna work. It was difficult, but luckily most people, like in my age bracket, speak English. Which is always kind of like weird when you travel abroad as like an American and you think that what if the rest of the world is just as messed up as we are, and they outright refuse to speak a language other than their own native language, and then you get like evil looks and ostracized and all that fun stuff. But then you go to other places and you're like, no, the people are actually very nice and helpful. They speak better English than we do. It's truly wild if you've never experienced it before. Alright, this section is shorter, so it might be easier to just hook up to this one first, since it's on this side. Whereas to get to that one, we gotta go past the switch off of the main. Whereas here, we just have to go past that switch. Alright, let's just do it this way. There's a lot of tankers. This is going to be a heavy load to drag out of here. But the good news is, if it gets too much to deal with, we'll hook up the third DE6 that we've got sitting over in the roundhouse. Go from there. Oh, it's on the other side of the oxygen cars. Is it oxygen or nitrogen? Probably nitrogen. Nope, that's oxygen. The nitrogen is elsewhere. In fact, I don't know where the nitrogen is. Alright, is it this one or that one? Nope, it's the next one. It's this one. Alright, we're gonna hook up to the shorter one because it's closer. And then we'll go through the painful process of hooking up to the longer one. Let's get a drink real quick. Alright. So here we go again. Alright, we're lined up the right way. Let's throttle up a little bit. I don't think acetylene is shock sensitive. I just know that it's like very unstable in the cylinders. That's why there's like this honeycomb butane grid inside of an acetylene tank. And they always have to be stored standing upright, so the liquid stays down inside of like the honeycomb. Because if you like lay it on its side, it'll just randomly turn into a rocket and just blow off in any which direction it feels. Back when I did my first... Oh no, actually it was not HAZMAT. It was back when I was in welding school. We saw a safety video of an acetylene warehouse just randomly exploding. Like, even the investigation, they couldn't find what like triggered it, so it was just like, it just blew up. Cylinder turned into a rocket, and then it just ignited the entire warehouse. It was absolutely insane. And then, the very first time I did my HAZMAT class, I saw a lot more of those videos. Of even more stuff exploding, some of which I didn't even know was explosive. Like, for instance, granulated sugar. Just fine powdered sugar. Never would have guessed in a million years that a sugar factory is a ticking time bomb. Until I watched the videos of one, I want to say, down in Georgia, that exploded due to an overheated bearing on a conveyor belt. And it didn't have a shroud keeping the sugar inside of it and on the conveyor belt, so the dust was kind of like going everywhere. And then there was like this bearing that I guess it needed like lubricated or something, and it got way too hot and it just ignited the sugar dust and blew up an entire factory. And watching that like hour-long video, you're just like, dear God, I didn't even know that was bad. But it's kind of crazy to think about stuff like that. Or when I talk to people about my HAZMAT endorsement on my commercial driver's license, and all of the fun stories of how people incorrectly assume that they're not hauling HAZMAT when it turns out they actually are, and people don't realize what like common items you see every day are actually hazardous materials. But I kind of started getting a bit of a feel for that back when I was still in the Marine Corps, because I was the NCOIC of my department's HAZMAT shop. And I've had lots and lots of times where we would have like a coming safety inspection, pretty much. Let's go with that. and people were getting hit for having unauthorized hazmat in their work center. And then people would be angry and coming to me, like, why do they have unauthorized hazmat? And then I'm just, like, dumbfounded, like, what do you mean they have unauthorized hazmat? And then they bring in, like, the weirdest, like, collection of cleaning supplies ever, and be like, this isn't listed on your authorized use list. And I'm just like, they didn't get that from me. And then you get the angry phone calls from people with a lot of chevrons and too much time on their hands. And they're asking me, why am I not allowed to have whiteboard cleaner? It's HAZMAT. You are allowed to have it. It's just you have to get it from me. Well, spoiler, they don't like hearing that. But they make peace with hearing it from a corporal before they hear it from the master sergeant about something they messed up. Now all of a sudden, I'm not the bad guy. It's like the weirdest thing. I have lots of stories like that if I ever actually took the time to start telling them to people. But I've tried vlogging in the past to questionable results. Let's go with that. Now, if it's in something like this, where I'm otherwise gainfully employed doing something else, and I just so happen to throw in some random stories from real life, that would probably be fine. And it would give me something to talk about, so I'm not just sitting here in silence listening to my supposedly relaxing playlist of background music provided by the Streamlabs music app. Although there's a couple of songs on that playlist that it goes from being like chill and relaxing to being like seductive. And it's always weird when we get to those ones. But that's more on me just making it weird. Is that a coal pile? Who knows? Probably. It's kind of cool when you do the HAZWAPER program, at least where I did it. We had to watch like a mini documentary. The class is 40 hours long, right? And we had to watch like a whole bunch of documentaries about things that have happened in the past. Emergencies, disasters, just like really bad, messed up stuff that happened because of the release of some toxic chemical. And one such mini documentary that I don't really know why it stuck with me, but it was from like historical records from, I want to say, like the 1870s or something like that. and it was about like a massive coal fire somewhere on the coast in Texas, where basically a spark from a ship fire got into the coal piles on the shore, and it set the entire shipyard on fire, and it literally burned for like months, because when a coal pile catches on fire, it could be burning for weeks before you even realize it's on fire. So whenever you go past by like a pier where they're unloading coal, you'll notice that they're spraying the pile down with water as they add more coal to it, so that nothing is wet in the middle of the pile. Because if there's a spark under the pile, it'll be burning a long time before you even see it glow. And then once you actually know it's on fire, there's like almost nothing you can do about it. You just have to stop it from spreading and let it burn out. And that will take a long, long time. And it's just so crazy to remember all of those things. And then you start seeing it in practice when you're like driving around, when you're working around chemicals, when you're playing a random train video game where it wants you to haul loads of coal in the rain. All that fun stuff. Basically, the short version is, I have some very bizarre interests that I absolutely love talking about, even if nobody else loves hearing about them. Alright, but we've got a pretty solid train of gasoline, diesel, and acetylene. Really, the machine factory should probably switch to propylene like we did in the factory, because it doesn't burn as hot, but it's less violently explosive. But then you get into, like, what exactly are you using it for? And acetylene is pretty hot, so it's good for, like, heavy cutting and welding operations. Propylene will get the job done, but it's not quite as hot as acetylene when it's burning and properly dialed in. But then you have, like, the people that work in, like, the scrap yards, for example. They'll swear up and down that you don't use propylene or acetylene. Instead, you use propane. And even though it burns lower than both of them, apparently it works the best on rusted metal. I don't know if that's true. I've never used a propane torch. But if they say it works, I guess it works. Okay. It's weird watching the videos of people playing it in the 2D mode, and they have like this weird thing where they like click on one of the hoses, then click on the other one, and then it just like magically snaps. And then here I am sitting there like, all right, I gotta use the magnet, grab that one, pull them together, pop, pop. It just feels different, as dumb as that's gonna sound. Kind of interesting, the placards they picked for this, though. Asphyxiating. This is probably nitrogen. Yep, nitrogen. It's also weird being as this game is set somewhere in Eastern Europe, in the fictional nation of Derail Valley. So the placards aren't the ones that I'm familiar with. Or even like the international, like UN ones. They still get the point across, it's just they're different. Like, this would just be class 2. Flammable gas. Alright, let's get over here. This might actually make it better. Yeah, that's a nicer thumbnail. All right, let's hit the horn, throttle up, and then all we got to do is just get to the trail end of this and make sure we're aligned with this side, because we need to get to this specific switch. Actually, no, we gotta be aligned to that. I'm on the wrong side. Such is life. I gotta flip this switch so that the train is on the main line. In case we come down from up north and basically, I just want to have it routed to always go down the main line. It'll be really interesting to see the like the grade crossings and all that fun stuff. I gotta be really careful because my last stream, I had a minor derailment, like right there, and 2 cars like absolutely exploded and just shot off the track. Even though we're going well under the speed limit. In fact, let's check on that. Okay, this sign right here says you can go 60 kilometers an hour through here. I was around about here by this grade crossing doing 18 kilometers an hour. I hit the brakes to try to slow down a little bit, and just boom. Flat intermodal containers everywhere. It was crazy. You had to have been there. And now we're clear over there. So hit this, and it'll be aligned with E6. Also the main line going through the E-track. Now, the good news is that between the loads going to City Southwest and the Machine Factory, the ones going to City Southwest are all tankers, and the ones going to the Machine Factory are all intermodal. So, at least we can instantly tell, okay, that one's got containers on it, that one's going to the Machine Factory. Now, what gets a little bit interesting is the fact that it's 2 cuts of tanker cars going to City Southwest, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it's worth noting that they might not be going to the same track. Alright. But we have a thing for that too. You'll notice that all of the gasoline cars say flammable and explosive, whereas all of the diesel cars just say flammable. Which, there is some truth to that. Like, gasoline is considered a flammable liquid by the U.S. Department of Transportation. It has a flash point, meaning it produces vapors in large enough quantity that it could pose a hazard. As cold as negative 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Diesel fuel, on the other hand, is considered a combustible liquid by the U.S. Department of Transportation. Its flash point is 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So, what does that mean? If you have a cold diesel tank, you can open it up, drop a lit match into the diesel tank, and it will burn out before the match touches the bottom of the tank. Now, do not try that with... well, don't try that at all, but definitely do not try it with a warm tank, like, say, the engine's been running. That means the diesel is a little bit warmer, and it probably will burn. It's just going to take a little bit of effort to make it happen. That's why diesel engines have to warm up. Well, with a gas tank, if you try doing the same thing with the match, it doesn't matter if you did it at the North Pole. You're going to have a fireball burning your eyebrows off before the match even gets to the opening of the tank. So, they represent that in the game by telling you that gasoline will explode, which it will. Fun fact, gasoline is also slightly corrosive. If you try to drink it, it's gonna burn. Whereas diesel fuel, it's not gonna burn. It will probably make you throw up, but it's not gonna burn. And then back when I was in my HAZMAT class, I was actually on the, I don't think it was TikTok at the time. I think it was still Snap. I think we were still using Snapchat then. I was on, like, the Snap for the community college, where we were talking about lethal doses, and at my part of the demonstration, I was talking about the LD50 of not diesel fuel, but specifically an additive found in diesel fuel called naphthalene, which is a kind of sticky white powder. At least I think it's sticky. It's been a minute since I was last in organic chemistry and had to identify naphthalene, so I don't remember specifically. I just know that it's a white powder. It may or may not be sticky. But you have to track the LD50 of naphthalene because that is basically the only carcinogenic additive of diesel fuel. Carcinogenic meaning it's known to cause cancer. Well, the thing is that in diesel fuel, naphthalene is like 0.01% by volume of diesel. So in my demonstration, or in my presentation on the toxicology of diesel, I think I said something to the effect of you would have to be standing on the back of a tanker drinking the diesel out of the hatch with a straw before you would ever have to worry about the naphthalene killing you. Like, no amount of accidental exposure can give you a toxic dose of naphthalene. You would literally have to be chugging it out of the tanker in order for it to kill you. And it was just like the weirdest thing, because I got back to work the following day and they showed me the video. Like, is this you talking about chugging diesel fuel out of a tanker? Like, yeah, that was me. Use the context of it. So imagine everybody's surprise when I get out of the Marine Corps and instead of finishing school and going, or instead of finishing college and going to medical school, I became a truck driver instead. And now I'm playing a VR video game about trains, talking about chugging diesel fuel. Didn't have that on the bingo card for this year. Making pretty good time. I mean, I say that, and each one of these jobs had like a 30-minute delivery time, and I'm just now leaving, and I've been streaming for over an hour. But as I said in a stream I was watching, not yesterday, but the night before, I've pretty much accepted that I'm never getting a speed bonus ever again. But even that is not necessarily true. If I actually do, like I think I'm probably going to, and I play on the realistic difficulty after the simulator update comes out, apparently they expect you'll do the intelligent thing on realistic, and you'll do everything slowly, methodically, deliberately. Basically, you're going to be a lot more careful because a lot more is at stake. And, well, I'm all for that, and since they know you're going to do everything slow so you don't break anything, apparently the time bonuses are changed dramatically. Like, it's a whole different ballgame. So the time bonuses are more forgiving because you're supposed to do it slow. And then the jobs pay out better because you have like what amounts to an Iron Man save system where you got one shot to get everything right, and you can't just like rewind time and take back that it's like, oh no, I blew up Oil Well Central, back up my previous save. No, you're if you exit out of the game, it's gonna load you back where you exited out. So you're gonna live with the consequences of your actions. And then in the responding to the comments that people have been leaving on like the videos and the overall like recap of all the content that was put out in February, they're like, most people are probably going to use the standard mode, which has the realistic damage, system failures, and you can still use like the third-person camera, the external UI, keyboard controls, all of that stuff. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm not in that demographic. Like, I pretty much exclusively play this in VR. So when I saw that thing about the external camera, I'm just like, yeah, that sounds like a good way to throw up in VR, so I'm not going to do that. But then, to be fair, somebody asked in that video in the Discord server about how will this apply to VR players, and I want to say the comment on it was saying that they have another thing in mind for VR players that just hasn't been showcased yet. There's that other one. It sounded like it was kind of like you're gonna be like supersized and like standing away from it like you're playing with a toy train, so it's not gonna be as vomit-inducing for VR players. And it's kind of like that. I can't remember for the life of me what the game is called, but it's the game that you can play it where you're working with the controls by hand, or you can play it like with a remote control, like you're driving a toy train around a track in your garage. It sounds like it might be something like that. But since, as you already know, they haven't showcased those features yet, so we don't know anything about it. Oh, and I was speculating about the gauges. I didn't pay close enough attention to the air brake video. Instead of having 4 gauges, it's being collapsed down to just 2 gauges. But it's functionally 3 because there'll be 2 needles on this one. One will be the brake cylinder and one will be the brake pipe, and then this will be like the main reservoir. So the only thing missing is it doesn't have the 4th gauge, which would be the equalizing reservoir, which is the thing that you would directly control with the brake valve. And then it was kind of cool that you find out that pretty much ever since the beginning, it's been like an inside joke that there are switches that all it does is it turns on a blue light and nothing else. I didn't realize that was an inside joke, but I kind of took like a break from playing the game for like years, and then I got back into playing it basically in the last year, because at the end of last year I decided I want to go work in the railroad. I was always wondering, like, when I had the idea of, hey, wouldn't it be cool to work for the railroad? And then I was like, well, can I be an engineer? Can I drive a train? And then, well, it turns out, yes, you can. But with the freight companies, you don't start as an engineer, you start as a conductor. And then, if you get enough seniority and your number is called, you get to go to engine school to become an engineer instead. And then it's like, well, that would be pretty cool. What does the conductor do? Well, it turns out the conductor does most of the manual stuff outside of the train. Like, the engineer's sitting up here working the controls, but the conductor's hanging onto the side of the car with a walkie-talkie telling you to back up a little bit farther. And then I was like, actually, that job sounds pretty cool. And then when I had my first interview to be a freight conductor, I was just like, I had to watch a couple of videos before my interview started, and I got to that part, and then they basically said in the video that nobody stays a conductor for long. You're pretty much guaranteed that if you stick with the company, you're gonna be either an engineer or something else within a matter of years. And it's not a question of if, it's just when. And that was just like the coolest thing ever. Like, they want you to work your way up, and you stay with them for like 20 years. And it's like, yeah, that sounds freaking awesome. And then everybody is always like, yeah, but the hours are insane. You're like on call 24/7. And then you got like 2 hours to get to work. And then it's like, yeah, but hear me out. You work 6 days and you're off for 2. You guys get off days. I don't have that driving a truck. So it's like, I'm already used to a messed up schedule. I'm good. So yeah, I've been really excited and hoping to get back a final start date so I can start training. Because that just all around seems like a really great opportunity for me. But you kind of have to take that with one big grain of salt, because there have been some incidents in the last couple of months and things that kind of make it seem a little like grim and like maybe it's not the greatest thing ever. And it's just weird, I guess. Alright, we gotta stay under 50 for this turn. And things are gonna get really bad around this corner. Or not this corner, the next corner. It was kind of funny, like, I've made this route like so many times, and I was watching somebody else stream the game that they don't have the time in it that I do, and they made a wrong turn, but I was looking at the stream like, I don't know where the hell you are. Well, it turns out they missed this turn and ended up in Forest South. Well, I'd never been to Forest South. I think I went to Forest Central once when I was looking for the caboose. And I may have gone to the sawmill once. But to my knowledge, I've never been to Forest South or Iron Mine East. Why did I use the Independent? That's not going to do a damn thing. I've driven past Iron Mine East, but I've never actually gone to it. I've been to the coal mine once. But I didn't do anything there. I actually have not been everywhere on the map. I kind of stick to like a routine of doing like the same things. Now you'd probably immediately think, well, that would probably get boring really fast, but I just relax and drive trains. And now I've gotten a little bit more interesting because I wanted to start streaming it. Now back in 2019, I was playing a game called Wolfpack, and I was pretty much exclusively streaming that, even though I was terrible at it. Like, just using the torpedo computer alone was a nightmare. You needed to have actually been on a German U-boat in World War II to know how the damn thing works. Well, I don't remember what happened, but I got like distracted with something else in my life, and I stopped streaming it. But it was around the time that I had gotten my Oculus Rift originally, and I had set up my Twitch channel to start streaming Derail Valley, but I never actually did it. And now, fast forward to 2023, 4 years later, I decide, you know what? I want to get back into streaming. I want to see if I can get anywhere with it. Well, one of the first things I decided to start streaming was Derail Valley. I noticed very early on that I don't really have, or at first, I didn't have anybody watching the streams. But I did have people watching the recorded videos when I export them to YouTube. And they were getting like higher numbers of views relative to the other things that I put out. Even the dedicated, like, I actually intentionally set out to make a video instead of a stream. Those were getting a surprising amount of views for something that's not a particularly popular category on Twitch. And then, in my most recent streams, I've started to notice that I actually am getting viewers, and occasionally I'm getting people chatting, and it just kind of like set in that even if it seems small, there is a market for this game. There are people that are watching it. There are probably people in this room right now. Okay, maybe not, but maybe it's because I'm starting this in the evening instead of in the morning like I've done in the past. It's not important. the bottom line is, this is actually getting results. And somehow, in like a month of streaming, I've gained only 5 followers so far, but I gained something. And then I was just looking at the analytics for my YouTube channel, and specifically since I started exporting my streams over to my YouTube channel, there has been a major spike in views and watch time on my channel. So, by every metric, even though I'm not seeing any crazy results or output or anything like that, all of the data says I am doing something right. So, I'm gonna see if I can maintain a somewhat consistent schedule and roll with it for a little while and see if I can do anything with it. I do not know why my frame rate just, like, died. I was looking at a slideshow for a second there. But that's not important. Like I said, we're gonna roll with it and hope for the best. And I'll still mix it up and throw in a couple of other games here and there to try to keep it interesting. But the ones that are oddly enough getting views are this and Train Sim World. I guess everybody else likes trains just like I do. Keep an eye on our speed going through here because this part gets a little dicey. And this actually is a pretty good sized train by Derail Valley standards. On one hand, I would like to see like the cutout valve for the automatic brake, but at the same time, with the kind of automatic system that they use for the it's like with the automatic system that they use for the MU cable, where it's not like the controls are off. You can touch the controls in any locomotive and it'll affect the controls for all the connected locomotives, so the cutout valve would be completely pointless. But they have a space for it, so it's just like, well, there's a slot, so maybe something should go in it. But at the same time, by moving this valve in here, if I push this forward, I can go back to my second locomotive, and that valve will be in the exact same position in that cab. So, just by that fact alone, there would be no reason to put in a cutout valve. Because none of them are cut out. There's not one single locomotive that's designated as the lead locomotive. It's just whatever one you're standing in, you can control the train. And that makes it very, very simple. kinda curious, though, because the realistic setting is supposed to, or in the difficulty setting, yeah, the difficulty presets video, they were talking about the headlights and how they can go forward, backwards. There was another video talking about headlights, but in the difficulty presets, they had an option for whether or not the headlights are automatic for multiple unit connections. So it'll be interesting because more than likely you'll have to go through to all of them and be like, okay, this is the lead locomotive, so turn it forward, and then go to your middle locomotive, turn it off completely, then go to your rear locomotive, and then say, okay, this is the back locomotive, so turn it to the rear. Whereas there's an automatic setting on easier difficulty modes where you just flip this one on your lead locomotive and then it just automatically determines, okay, this is facing that way, so turn it going that way, it's facing that way, turn it going that way. Little stuff like that. But realistically, since I have this compulsive need that when I play Train Sim World, I started actually using the switches for designating, controlling, or leading, or trailing locomotives for the lights. Doesn't always work in the game, but I'm flipping the switches anyway because I guess it makes me feel better. It just makes it really disappointing when you go into the third-person view and you see the lights on your lead locomotive working like they're supposed to, and then you think that they're working on your trailing locomotive, and then you hit the moving third-person camera, and then you go back to your your last trailing locomotive, expecting, like, alright, I set the back lights on dim, so it should be showing lights pointed at the cars, and then they're just off because the switch is in the game, but it doesn't do anything on that route, and it's just, like, kind of disappointing, if I'm being completely honest. But that's a thing for another day. I have to make peace with Train Sim World 3 and the fact that I stupidly blew a signal and failed the scenario when I was at the final destination. So I gotta make peace with that and continue on with my life without being disappointed and hating the game. Or myself. 6 one, half dozen the other. Alright, now we gotta get the remote out. Because this is where it's gonna start getting interesting. Let's turn this on. And let's go right here. Now, the thing is, we have to leave the acetylene cars right here on this bridge. Because they are not going to City Southwest, they are going to the machine factory. So we gotta see how far back do they go. So 74. I think gasoline's up front. Alright, so it's 74. And not that one. E2. Okay, C2I, C3I. Okay. Alright. So, can't see the cars yet, but we know they're coming. Okay, no, the diesel cars are up front, gasoline is in the middle. Alright, so right here is my first acetylene car. Alright, let's just cut it off right here. Alright. It kind of goes with what I was saying earlier about how I always go from the back to the front, because apparently the game likes that better. Well, just unhooked from the front to the back. So whatever I do, the game's going to do the opposite. Such is life, I guess. Alright, next thing we gotta do is go over here. And this switch is over here. Right? Yeah, it's right here. Alright, so we gotta get past this switch to go into the C yard. And to be fair, the 3 inbound should have more space for more cars. Do I have it in the wrong order? No, that's flammable. Flammable. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the handbrakes, because I can't see this grade sign. It's kind of underground, so I'm just hoping that it's kind of level right there, so my cars don't leave me. Because that would be a disaster. Have a completely unpowered train of acetylene just barreling down the tracks with nothing slowing it down. It's only a matter of time before it rolls off the side and then blows something up. As much as we love to make fun of it, I really do like the movie Unstoppable. So much so, in fact, that I actually looked up what happened with the real incident, because I was curious, and you basically find out that almost everything about the movie was dramatized to make it a better movie. Because the real incident, while crazy and could have potentially been a disaster, like, it just didn't happen like that. Alright. Okay, we gotta pop this thing into reverse real quick so we can at least get it moving. Alright. Now what we could do is... Oh, actually that's pretty handy. We're already lined up. Now I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna regret not bringing the caboose now. But yeah, basically it didn't happen like it did in the movie. The thing about the molten phenol, that was true, but instead of it being like 8 cars, it was like 3 cars. And then instead of the train getting up to like 80 miles an hour clocked by the Pennsylvania State Police, it was more like 60 miles an hour, and it took place in Ohio. And then, like, the whole main plot of the movie was that, it's like the main thing was that, they attempted in the movie to do the lash up from the front, derailed the lash up, and then the main characters tried to couple from the back, and they ended up actually slowing down the train. Well, it turns out with the real incident, that was plan A, and the lash up from the front was the second option. And